Hey guys, tonight we climb aboard a creaking, salt-crusted Phoenician merchant galley. Nothing luxurious, nothing remotely safe, and definitely nothing resembling a sleep schedule. You're barefoot on a deck slick with sea slime, hauling coils of rope you dainty fully understand while the scent of rotting fish and unwashed sailors soaks into your very soul. You're under a low sun that's never warm enough when you need it, and always blistering when you don't. This is no cruise. This is the grimy, rhythmic life of a sailor from ancient Tyre or Sidon rowing. Offloading, bartering, yelling, sweating, catching naps wherever you can. Wedge your body and momentarily forget you're alive. And yeah, spoiler alert. You've probably wanted to survive this job long enough to retire and take up olive farming. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. Let's see who else is listening under the stars tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the sound of waves licking the hull, but not in a romantic way. It's more of a slapping, resentful rhythm, like the seas trying to guilt you for floating on it. A low fog rolls off the shoreline, swallowing the world in silver-gray haze. The sky is a bland dishwater color, no hint of sun yet, and your skin is already damp from mist and last night's sweat.
Oh.
Welcome back to the graveyard shift. You push yourself upright from the coarse rope pile you call the bed and instantly regret it. Your back protests, your feet sting, and the bruised dent in your hip that's from sleeping half off a coil of anchor chain. Classic mistake. A guttural horn really, just a conch shell blown by the oldest sailor on board, signals the shift change. Time to row. Again. For the next 2 hours, it's you, an oar longer than your self-esteem. The hope that no one pukes beside you this time. You wedge yourself onto the rowing bench, and your hands instinctively curl around the splintering wood. No one speaks, or too tired or too superstitious. Or both. Phoenicians aren't exactly chatty before dawn. You begin to row. The oar cuts through dark water with a schlurp, and soon the rhythm becomes its own lullaby. Push, pull, breathe, groan. The calluses on your palms crack a little deeper. You watch a lantern swing overhead, its tiny flame defying the wind. And you wondered how you ended up here instead of selling dates in a sunny inland town like a sane person. Historians still argue whether Phoenician sailors were paid wages or simply lived off shares of trade profits. Either way, you're not exactly rolling in silver. What you do have is barley bread, dried figs, and the distinct honor of never having a solid 8 hours of sleep in your life. Your hammock? There isn't one. On this boat, it's floorboards, barrels, rope, nest, anything that doesn't move too much. That spot behind the amphria fish sauce, surprisingly warm. Unfortunately, also surprisingly fishy. A fringe theory one you heard from a half-drunk navigator claims that Phoenician captains chose crew members based on their ability to fall asleep upright while rowing. It sounds ridiculous, but honestly, it feels like a survival skill now. Some nights, your brain just decides it's time to black out, and your body rows on autopilot. At some point, the sun finally shows itself, crawling up over the horizon like it too is exhausted from another night watching you row. A light breeze stirs your crusted tunic, and you blink at the glowing line of coasts up ahead. Maybe Byblos, maybe Cyprus? No one tells you anything. Your relief shift arrives, late of course, and you drag yourself to the edge of the deck. You sit. You exhale. You don't speak. Someone offers you a skin of goat milk. You sip, and it tastes vaguely of hooves. Delicious. You climb below deck, where the air thickens instantly. It's warmer, darker, and smells like every sailor who's ever coughed down here. You find your bed, which tonight is the space between 2 amp ferry filled with olive oil. You curl your aching body between them, too tired to care about the steady leak soaking into your tunic. As you drift, you overhear someone up top talking about a new consignment of cedar wood. That means trade. That means docking. That means a nap not on a moving boat. Dare to dream. Your eyelids drop like anchors, and the hum of the sea wraps around your skull. But just before you go under, a rat scampers across your foot. Of course it does. You sigh, and try not to think about where it's headed. One interesting fact. The Phoenicians were among the first to develop the keel design, which helped their ships cut through water with better stability. It also made your sleep a little smoother, less rocking, more drifting. Small wins. You don't dream, not really. Just flickers of sky and wind, and the odd panic jerk when you imagine falling overboard. Somewhere in your half-conscious haze, you picture Tyre's shoreline again, its stone towers, its noisy markets, and the stubborn old man who tried to sell you a clay statue that definitely looked cursed, and then someone shouts, probably a command. Maybe a warning. You don't move. You pretend not to hear. Maybe if you lie still enough, they'll mistake you for cargo. Or dead. Either option is preferable to rowing right now. But the shout comes again. Closer. And you know without opening your eyes that rest time is over again. You sit up. Your neck cracks. Your back moans. You're alive technically. You stumble toward the ladder, dragging your feet, already bracing for another slog of muscle and monotony. Above deck, the sky is fully lit now, and the coast grows closer. Somewhere beyond it, people are sleeping in real beds, on real floors, not dreaming of drowning or being crushed by amphory. You envy them, and yet oddly you also pity them, because they'll never know the oddly peaceful madness of this life, the waves, the wind, the camaraderie of men who can snore louder than thunder. And with that oddly poetic thought, you grab your oar. Push-pull, breathe, groan. Sleep. Technically, yes. But it's the sort of sleep that makes you question whether you actually rested or just briefly lost consciousness. You're wedged between two water barrels again, one of which is slowly leaking because someone borrowed a plug to carve into a dice. Classic. Around you, the faint creaking of the hull lulls you into something like rest. But the constant drip of condensation from the ceiling hits your forehead every 37 seconds. You've counted. Twice. This is the standard for sleep on a Phoenician merchant vessel, stolen in scraps, compromised by everything. And always at risk of being interrupted by a shout, a splash, or someone stepping directly on your face in the dark. Up above, the ship rocks gently. Now come see for one switch makes everything worse. Ironically. Because in calm weather, the crew's expected to move faster, haul more, and rest less. You've almost started missing storms, if only because they meant you had a slightly better excuse to stay curled in your corner with your eyes half shut and your knees pressed to your chest like a shipwrecked pretzel. You shift slightly, trying to relieve pressure from the bruised part of your hip bone. No good. The deck's warped here, curving upward as if the ship's rib cage is trying to crush you like a bad memory. There's no cushioning, unless you count your dirty cloak, which smells vaguely of smoked fish and regret. Historians still argue whether the Phoenicians prioritized speed over cargo space when designing their ships. You're fairly certain they sacrificed both, based on how narrow the quarters are. You can barely stretch your legs without kicking someone's SEL basket or toppling a precariously stacked jar of lentils. Sleep, under these conditions, is like a game of balance and humility. Mostly humility. On your best nights, you catch maybe 3 solid hours broken into half-hour chunks and separated by either a foot cramp or a shouted command from the deck. On your worst nights, well, let's just say the line between dreams and hallucinations gets alarmingly thin. Once you saw a glowing goat head float past your face. You didn't even blink. You just nodded and went back to pretending your elbow wasn't numb. Some of the older sailors have developed odd techniques to get their rest. One man, Rommel, insists on humming a low note, just one pitch, held under his breath like a buzzing fly. He says it keeps the sea spirits away. More likely it just drowns out the sound of people sobbing quietly into their armpits. Another guy nicknamed Snorbuckle manages to sleep with his eyes half open. It's disturbing, but also kind of impressive. Once, during a storm, he fell asleep standing, leaning against the mast, mouth open, snoring like a disgruntled walrus. No one even bothered to wake him. You, on the other hand, are still learning, still experimenting. You tried sleeping curled in a coil of rope once. Comfy at first, until the rats decided you were part of their labyrinth. You tried the life lad and pretend you're dead strategy. Someone tried to loot your pouch. Rude. Tonight, you're trying slow blink meditation, as taught to you by a sailor named Bezuru, who claims he learned it from a Babylonian spice merchant, who could nap during camel raids. You breathe slow. You blink slower. Let the roll of the ship become your lullaby. And just as your limbs begin to tingle in that telltale way, that means your brain is slipping under. Wake up, shift, turn. The shout pierces your skull like a trident. You jolt up, slam your knee into a barrel, and bite your tongue hard enough to taste yesterday's lentils. Beautiful, enlightening, transcendent. You stumble into the moonlight, your legs uncooperative, your tunic clinging to you like wet parchment. A breeze tugs at your hair. Catch a glimpse of the stars, scattered like crushed pearls across the sky. Somewhere out there is Polaris, the North Star, your silent, glowing friend in this nonsense. It helps the navigator, but it also keeps you sane. Fun fact, the Phoenicians were among the earliest known cultures to navigate using the stars. That's great and all, but right now you'd trade astronomy for a functioning pillow. As you climb into position and wrap your sore hands around the OR again, you glance at your shiftmates. Hollow-eyed, slack-jawed, half asleep they look like an undead rowing team cursed to circle the Mediterranean for eternity. You blend in nicely. The air is colder now. The wind carries with it the scent of pine, tar, and overripe olives. You row. The night is endless. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you try to remember what solid earth feels like. What it is like to sleep with a roof over your head and no threat of being roused to shovel goat dung off the deck. Your muscles work from memory now. Each pull of the oar is automatic, disconnected from any conscious effort. It's just motion, a loop, ritual, sleep rowing, if you will. There's a moment brief, fleeting when your eyelids flutter closed mid-stroke. Just a second, but it's enough to conjure a flicker of dream. You see home, your real bed, that chipped lamp on the wall, your sister yelling at you for stealing her bread. It feels so real. Then someone behind you sneezes violently and the dream pops like a bubble. You keep rowing. There's another technique for stolen rest whispered among the crew. Head drop sleep. You let your head loll forward, feigning unconsciousness. Sometimes you even get away with it for 3 or 4 strokes before someone smacks you with a wet rag. It's not rest, exactly, but it's the closest you're getting to REM out here. And still, the water laps. The oars creak. The ship groans. Above you, clouds part briefly to reveal a full moon, bathing the deck in silver. For just a heartbeat, the world feels quiet, beautiful, even. Then someone farts, and the moment dies, a horrible, noisy death. Sleep? Technically, yes, but only just. And with a high chance of elbow bruises, ghost dreams, and the faint scent of ancient goat. Push, pull, breathe, groan. You've lost count of how many times you've repeated this exact rhythm, but your arms are aware. They remind you with every movement, tendons like twine, shoulders stiff as wet papyrus. The 2-hour rowing shift feels less like a unit of time and more like a philosophical challenge. How long can you function before your body files for independence? Phoenician sailors, like you, work in rotating shifts, known today by scholars as something between a broken watch system and an endurance test sponsored by insomnia. There's no precise schedule carved into stone, but the rhythm of the ship is brutally reliable. 2 hours on, for off if you're lucky. And by off, of course, we mean doing anything that's not rowing. Hauling goods, maintaining the rigging, fixing things with a shell, and wishful thinking. Maybe even a snack, or a nap, or more likely, both at once. Historians still argue whether these shifts were strictly enforced or loosely followed depending on sea conditions. You'd guess the latter because the sea doesn't care about schedules. And neither does the captain when the cargo's overdue. The shift bell rings again, a chunk of bronze with a cracked side that someone insists adds character. You unlatch yourself from your assigned bench with a wince. Your fingers leave a sweaty imprint on the oar, and your backside feels like it's permanently molded to the shape of the seat. You're fairly sure you now have splinters in places no one has ever had splinters before. You lurch off the bench, legs trembling, arms slack. You're done. For now, you shuffle toward the lower deck again. The hold smells no better than earlier, actually worse, now that someone spilled fish brine. But you settle back into your corner, with the resignation of someone who knows there is no escape, only rest. Short, shallow, interrupted, and precious. You fall asleep in seconds. And then, wake shift up. Of course, you force your eyes open. The blur of motion, the smell of tar, the whisper of the sea. Remember nothing from your nap, other than a dream about trading one of your teeth for a bag of lentils. This could be a metaphor, could be a memory, could be a sign of impending delirium. It's to say, you're back on the bench before your spine has fully woken up. And the worst part, the rhythm returns faster now. Your body doesn't argue, it just rows, like it's given up on resisting. Muscle memory becomes muscle surrender, and the cycle continues. You don't talk much to your fellow rowers. This conversation requires energy, and that's a luxury no one has. Occasionally, there's a grunt, or someone muttering about their blisters. Or that one guy who talks to his, or like it's his long-lost brother. You don't ask. The sun inches higher. Sweat beads on your brow, trickling down to sting your eyes. You squint toward the horizon. It's nothing but water and wet something. A dot. A sail could be another ship. Could be a rock. Could be the sleep hallucinations again. You blink. It's gone. By now, you've perfected the art of micronapping. Half your brain rows, the other half swims through dream mush. You once saw a dolphin wearing a crown tell you to unionize. You woke up laughing or crying. You honestly weren't sure. Sometimes the monotony breaks in unexpected ways. A dolphin pod races the ship, cheering you on with squeaks. Once, a flying fish smacked a rower square in the face, kept rowing, didn't even flinch. That's the level of exhaustion we're talking about. One quirky tidbit that no one prepared you for. Sea lice. They're real. They're awful. Sneak into your tunic and throw a little itchy parade. You've taken to scratching with the bristled end of a rope knot, which someone called the sailor's comb. Probably joking. Hopefully joking. You crave your next off shift, not for food or rest, but just for stillness. Just to sit. To not row. Be a human-shaped sack of meat and sleep debt with no immediate obligations. Finally, the bell rings again. Shift over. You don't cheer. You don't smile. You simply stop rowing and gently collapse forward, resting your head against the oar. The salt-stained wood is oddly comforting. You almost fall asleep right there, forehead pressed to the grain, dreaming of bread that isn't stale and wine that doesn't taste like fermented regret. Back below deck. Your usual spot is taken by someone snoring so loudly it sounds like they are recommunicating with whales. You sigh. You find a new spot. It's behind a barrel of dates that smells faintly of mildew and despair. You wedge in anyway. At this point, you'd sleep inside the barrel if it meant no one would step on you. You lie down, limbs aching, joints creaking. You close your eyes. You dream. And this time, the dream is vivid. You're home. Your mother is fussing over a stew pot. Your dog is chewing on your sandal. Sky is orange with the promise of sunset, and you smell roasted nuts from the market. You smile, and someone sneezes on you. You wake up. The guy next to you shrugs. Better than puking, he mutters, and rolls over. The air is warmer now. Sticky, like the ship's decided to boil you gently. You sit up, wiping your face with the sleeve of your cloak. It doesn't help. You hear someone climbing down the ladder, boots thudding. Coastline spotted. Captain says port in 3 hours. You blink. Port, dock, land, real sleep. You're suddenly wide awake. You rise slowly, joints protesting. You stretch as much as space allows, and crack your neck. 3 hours. Just enough time to fake one more shift, maybe pocket a nap, and brace yourself for the relative luxury of sleeping on a dock. In the open air, with no boat creaking beneath you, you trudge back up. One more shift. One more slog. Push, pull, breathe, groan. You row like a corpse reanimated purely by spite. Every motion feels exaggerated now, your limbs flopping a half-second behind your brain's command, as if your body's lagging on a bad connection. But the word port echoes in your mind like a sacred chant. Land, food, dirt that doesn't sway underfoot, sleep that doesn't involve rats and someone else's foot in your ribs. The finish line is in sight. Sort of. Phoenician ports aren't exactly rest havens, though. More like chaotic beehives of yelling, bartering, and awkward social maneuvering with people who may or may not want to steal your sandals. The one you're resailing toward now is Tyre-S Eastern Kusana, muddy harbor outpost that smells strongly of fish and ambition. You've been there twice before, and each time you left slightly more sunburnt and significantly more confused about how taxes work. Still, land means something solid. You can almost taste it. Your brain conjures wild, impossible luxuries. A real pillow? A soft bed? Even one of those flea-ridden cots at the dockside flophouse where the straw pokes you like tiny pitchforks. Anything is better than the ship's wooden spine. But you're not there yet, you row. Next to you, Ramel, the humming sleeper grunts and leans harder into the OR. He's lost track of rhythm and is now rowing at a speed somewhere between urgent storm panic and half-drunken festival dance. No one corrects him. Everyone's too tired to care. You're all in survival mode now. Just get to shore. Don't fall into the sea. And if someone offers you a place to sleep, say yes before they change their mind. Hold steady, becomes the captain's bark, his voice already hoarse from shouting at the horizon like it owes him money. A younger deckhand runs by, slips on a fish scale, and nearly pitches overboard. He clings to the rail, blinking salt water from his eyes, and resumes his duties as if nothing happened. You admire that. The ability to pretend something absolutely didn't happen when it very clearly just did is a useful sailor skill right up there with napping while upright and finding where someone hid the last pomegranate. The smell of land hits before the sight. Dirt, clay, olive smoke, you almost cry. Historians still debate how standardized Phoenician port procedures were. Some believe docking and unloading followed strict ritualistic codes, especially when dealing with sacred cargo like cedarwood or Tyrian purple dye. Others suggest it was more of a free-for-all, with each port inventing its own flavor of barely controlled chaos. Judging by your own experience, it's absolutely the latter. Port work is a bizarre ballet of shouting, shoving, and trying not to get flattened by a donkey with too much cargo and not enough patience. You finally spotted the breakwater cresting the horizon. The rooftops bobbing beyond like lazy turtles, and the faint outline of masts from other ships that beat you here. You're not even annoyed. You're too tired to feel competition. You just want to stop moving. The ship glides closer under sail. Rowing ends. You can feel the collective release of tension as everyone's arms fall limp. It's not celebration. It's a mechanical shutdown. Like wind-up toys running out of juice. You drag your aching body toward the railing and watch as the harbor opens before you. Dozens of people crowd the docks merchants, port officials, kids trying to sell oily bread twists for a coin or two. One of them is wearing a hat made of woven reeds and something disturbingly pink. Your ship groans and bumps gently against the pier. Ropes are thrown, cleats tied. You're still gripping the railing like it's a lifeline. You don't dare move yet. If you let go, you might collapse. The captain shouts orders with the joyless energy of someone who's just remembered he has to do taxes. The crew scrambles to unload. Amphory, cedar bundles, sacks of lentils. You're not officially on unloading duty, but that doesn't matter. If you linger long enough, someone will hand you something heavy and expect you to move it without dying. You do, of course, because that's what sailors do. Hoist a clay jar, probably wine, possibly vinaigrans. Stagger down the gangplank like a one-man circus act. A kid throws a fig at you. You don't react. You might have imagined it. Once your tasks are finished, you break from the crew and slink off. It's not far. Just enough to escape the shouting and the shifting and the smells. You find a shady patch beside a salt-stained warehouse and slide down the wall like a melting wax figure. You close your eyes. Your heartbeat echoes in your ears like distant drumbeats. You're asleep in moments. Then a chicken walks across your lap. You open one eye. It clucks disdainfully and moves on. You don't even have the energy to shoo it. You just sigh, brush off some feathers, and scoot sideways until you're no longer directly in its path. Priorities, it's not the best sleep, but it's the best sleep today. You drift in and out for maybe half an hour before the sun shifts and your patch of shade disappears. Now roasting, you groan and roll upright. Your tunic clings to your back, and your neck is developing a very specific tan line in the shape of a wine stain. You wander back toward the dock, eyes half-lidded, stomach rumbling like a trapped spirit. You need food before your next shift. Yes, there will be another shift, because life at sea doesn't care about your dreams of becoming a well-rested human being. Once the ship is refueled, restocked, and briefly resealed with pitch, you're back on the water. You approach a food stall and trade a smooth shell, curiously valuable in this port, for a flatbread wrap with something resembling fish paste and parsley. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just warm and edible and therefore miraculous. Nearby, a group of older sailors argue over whether it's better to sleep on the ship or under a dock cart with straw. One claims dock carts attract fewer rats. Another insists ship rats are more polite. You wander away from the debate. You've got your answer. Wherever your body collapses, that's the best place to sleep, even if it's beside a chicken. You're not sure how long you've slept beneath that warehouse wall, but judging by the way your spine currently feels like a zigzagging river delta, it wasn't long enough. The sky is deepening now, sun dipping low, shadows stretching longer like sleepy limbs across the harbor. The golden hour, some call it. But to a Phoenician sailor, it's the please don't make me get up yet hour. The shift bell rings again. It always finds you, that bell. You'd think the port would give you a day, or maybe even half of one. Nope. The ship's been patched, resupplied, and freshly cursed by someone who tripped over a loose rope. Time to sail. Again. Historians still argue whether Phoenician sailors had any structured shore leave, or if rest was more like a coin toss sometimes granted. Sometimes snatched away like an olive from a hungry goat. The evidence, or lack thereof, seems to support your experience. If you're not dead, you're working. Sleep is a side quest. You trudge back to the ship like a condemned man shuffling toward a very splintery gallows. The scent of tar and citrus oil wafts up as you board someone has been sealing the hull and trying to mask the smell with something marginally less horrifying. It doesn't work. The crew's smaller this leg. Half the sailors are staying in port to restock and trade. That means fewer rowers for the outbound push. That means, you guessed it, longer shifts, fewer breaks, and probably new blisters in places you thought were already maxed out on blisters. Your stomach knots. Not from nerves, but from the fish paste wrap, still having strong opinions inside you. You wonder briefly if your insides are planning a mutiny. A new deckhand approaches, all youthful optimism and clean fingernails. He looks at you like you might have wisdom. You stare back like a goat caught in a windstorm. "What's the trick to surviving?" he asks. You squint at him. Plane just loud enough that someone gives you extra rations, but not so loud they throw you overboard. He nods solemnly like you've just handed him the key to the universe. You get assigned to the night shift to your least favorite. It's not because it's colder or darker, but because of what it does to your brain. The night sea messes with your sense of time. You can't see the stars properly through the sailcloth. Your body doesn't know when to sleep or when to panic. And there's always that one goal that follows the ship and screams like it's being mildly inconvenienced by your existence. You row by moonlight. The stars above are scattered like salt across velvet, and the water glows faintly with planktonic light and eerie. Beautiful glow that would impress you more if you weren't busy trying not to pass out. About an hour into the shift, your oar partner lets out a whispering curse and stops rowing. You pause, thinking maybe he saw something a reef, a sea monster, maybe a tax collector on a boat. But no, his hand is cramped, seized up like a clenched claw. You help him stretch it. He groans in relief. That's the thing about night rowing, injuries feel worse, colder, more dramatic. Your joints become whiny children, your muscles, rebellious teenagers. You swap or sides. It's a small kindness. In exchange, he gives you a lump of honeyed bread he'd been saving. It's slightly fuzzy. You've eaten it anyway. It's the best thing you've tasted all week. A breeze picks up. It's cold and salty. It slices through your damp tunic, and you realize that this is the part of sailing they dan tea carve into amphory or chant about in harborside taverns. This is the grind, the monotony, the sleep debt so massive it could crush a donkey. It's a part where you become not quite human, just sea beast in training. One quirky fact that floats to your mind mid-row. Some Phoenician ships reportedly had small stone altars on board, especially on long voyages. Tiny little shrines tucked near the prow, where sailors would mumble sleepy prayers between shifts. Yours doesn't have one, but a crewmate carved a fish into the mast and swears it protects the vessel. You believe him, if only because you're too tired to argue about maritime theology. Suddenly something brushes your foot. You jolt, peer down. Just a rope. Or maybe not just a rope. You follow it with your eyes to the edge of the ship someone's harness line. A reminder that on rougher waters, you're sometimes tied to the vessel like a slightly reluctant barnacle. "Think we'll hit another port soon?" Someone murmurs behind you. You don't answer right away. It's mostly because you've forgotten how words work for a second. Maybe you say, finally, "If we don't sink or drift." or get eaten by a large philosophical whale. He chuckles, then coughs, then goes silent. The shift continues. Hours pass, or maybe minutes. It's hard to tell. The moon keeps playing tricks with the clouds, and your internal clock is packed up and left. Eventually, your shift ends. You hand off the oar to a crewman with bloodshot eyes and a worrying twitch. You don't even exchange words. Just nod. There's solidarity in silence. It's cold now, and your spot near the cargo hold has been claimed by someone twice your size and half your hygiene standards. You end up curling near the anchor chains, pressed against a sack of something that smells like pickled onions and wet regret. You sleep? Kind of. Your dreams blur again. You're at a feast. Plates piled high with lamb, olives, pomegranate seeds, fresh warm bread. You reach out to attend your hand as an oar. You wake up with your arms sticking straight out, mimicking the rowing motion. Again. Someone nearby mutters, still rowing in his sleep. Another voice replies, he's the most dedicated among us. You've grown. Not in defense, just out of existential resignation. The ship rocks gently. The stars shift above, and the gull finally blessedly goes silent. Your next shift is soon. But for now, you let yourself drift. Half asleep, half dreaming, wondering if you'll ever sleep for more than 4 hours in a row again. It's probably not, but hey, at least the bread had honey. You awaken not because you're rested, but because someone stepped on your hand. It wasn't even malicious, just a fellow sailor stumbling around in the low light looking for his sandals or his sanity, whichever was easier to locate. You peel yourself upright, bits of grain and rope fiber clinging to your face like tiny barnacles. The sea outside murmurs softly, deceptively calm. The sun isn't up yet. It's that slippery hour before dawn, where the world's neither dark nor light, and everyone's breath smells like old dreams and salted meat. Sit for a moment, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, trying to remember where you are. The ship. Again, always the ship. Sometimes it feels like you never left it. The deck above creaks under moving feet. You follow them up. Another shift, of course. Historians still debate how Phoenician crews divided their watches, especially on longer journeys. Some suggest a structured 3-shift system, while others argue it was more about improvisation. Shove the least exhausted people to the oars and hope the rest do and fall overboard. Judging by your life, it's that second theory. You're definitely rowing by committee, or more accurately, by who's the least likely to pass out mid-stroke. Someone hands you a fig. It's half squished but sweet, and for a brief moment, you almost believe in kindness again. You savor it as you settle onto your bench, stretching your fingers around the wooden oar like it's an old, slightly rude friend. The morning shift begins with less shouting than usual. The sea is smooth, the wind soft, a blessing and a trap. Days that begin peacefully usually end in either boredom or disaster, possibly both. A faint mist lingers over the water, blurring the horizon. Your captain says something about making good time, but it's hard to tell with his accent and the fact that he only has 3 teeth on the left side. His optimism is a bit suspect, but you nod anyway. You're too tired to argue nautical math. The morning moves slowly. Your arms ache. Your eyes water every time you blink. One of the other rowers has begun quietly singing a song about goat cheese. You don't know the lyrics, but the melody makes your eyelids droop. Quirky fact. Some Phoenician sailors reportedly carried small sleep stones, palm-sized river pebbles rubbed smooth over years of use. They'd keep them in pockets or under bedding, pressing them into the palm during sleep to help ground their dreams. You wonder what your stone would feel like right now. Probably damp, vaguely sticky, and blessedly heavier than your eyelids. A gull passes overhead and deposits something offensive onto the deck. Everyone looks up accusingly. The gull stares back, utterly unapologetic. Another reminder that nature respects neither rank nor sleep schedules. Around mid-morning, you finally rotate out. You barely make it back below deck before collapsing again. This time your spot is blessedly empty. You burrow into a coil of rope like a tired ferret and try to forget that your legs exist. And then it happens. That rare, magical thing. You sleep. Deeply, dreamlessly. No oars. No gulls. No phantom goats or singing fig vendors. Just blackness. Blessed, uninterrupted blackness. You're awoken by a sudden cracks, an unmistakable sound of pottery meeting deck at high velocity. You bolt upright. It's not a disaster, just someone dropping an amphora, olive oil. Everywhere, the deck gleams with slippery, golden regret. The cleanup begins immediately, with shouted curses and very careful barefoot dancing. You don't help. It's not out of laziness, okay? Partly laziness, but mostly because your shift isn't up yet. You lie back down, head on the rope, and close your eyes for 5 more minutes. They pass like 5 seconds, you're up again. Back on deck, the wind's changed. It smells different, richer, drier. Land isn't far. It'll be another day, maybe less. This part of the journey takes you southward, hugging the coast where trade is thick and politics even thicker. You've passed towns that look like marble dreams, and others that seem stitched together from driftwood and stubbornness. The variety fascinates you, confuses your stomach. You remember one port where you ate something the vendor called spiced mystery loaf? It burned all the way down and half the way back up. You still dream about it, and not in a good way. Another or shift. This one, rougher choppy water, sudden squalls. Rain slicks your hair to your scalp and sends rivulets down your back. The rowers behind you start making rhythmic grunting noises to keep the beat. Someone tries to turn it into a song. It fails spectacularly. You slip on your seat, nearly tumbling off. You grab the bench just in time. Another sailor laughs. But his laugh is that particular kind hollow, teetering on the edge of hysteria. You are all dangerously tired. A wave slaps the ship's side. You taste salt. You're not sure if it came from the sea or your own face. You finally stop for a meal. Dried dates and salted fish. It's chewy, tough, and vaguely sinister. Still, you eat it. You always eat it. Hunger isn't picky out here. Then a brief lull, no rowing, just floating. The silence is suspicious, but welcome. You lie on your back and look at the sky. Blue as crushed lapis. A few clouds dawdling lazily. You wonder if the gods nap on those. Maybe they're tired too. Your body aches in that deep cellular way that says you need a week in bed, a bath. And probably a physician trained in both medicine and exorcism. But you keep going, because you're a sailor, because the ship doesn't stop, because the sea doesn't ask if you're ready, it just demands. You close your eyes again, only for a second, just to listen to the waves, to the gulls circling above, to your breath, still here, still going, still rowing. You awaken with your face pressed against a coil of wet rope, and you can't tell whether the drool soaking your cheek is yours or just ambient seawater. You decide not to investigate. Best not to know. The ship has stopped moving. Or, no, wait. It's just rocking gently. A pause in the rowing. It's an eerie stillness, like the world holding its breath before sneezing. You hear voices above deck laughter, for once, and the clink of tools. You drag yourself upright, every muscle stiff as overcooked lentils. The calluses on your hands are starting to form their own personalities. When you emerge into the daylight, blinking like a confused turtle, you see the coast. It's close. A port bustling already. Small fishing boats. The water like little beetles, netting the morning's unlucky seafood. Beyond them, stone buildings tumble up a hillside. Red roofs like scattered pottery shards. Your ship inches toward the docks, guided by 2 shouting locals in a tiny rowboat. They look extremely annoyed at your captain, who is holding the rudder like it insulted his mother. Here's the thing about arriving at port. It doesn't mean rest. It means work. Unloading cargo, checking manifests, haggling over prices with suspicious traders who smell strongly of garlic and ambition. You get assigned to haul amphora clay jars taller than a goat and heavier than your opinions. They're full of something viscous, probably oil or wine or melted down sailor dreams. You don't ask. You just carry. Carefully. Because if you drop one, the deck turns into a slippery death rink. Gosh. And your supervisor turns into a loud, shouty beetroot. Historians still argue whether Phoenician sailors got paid per voyage, per task, or just with room, board, and the crushing weight of responsibility. No one really knows. The records are vague, and Phoenicians didn't leave a lot of personal diaries lying around. But judging by how fast everyone scrambles when coin purses are mentioned, you're guessing the pay system involves some combination of bartering, shouting, and praying no one shortchanges you. You finish moving the last amphora just in time to be sent back onto the ship for maintenance duty. Apparently, the stern plank needs resealing. and that means tar. Warm, sticky, smelly tar. You slather it over the wood with a flattened reed brush, feeling like a sleep-deprived snail painting its shell. The smell curls into your nostrils, stings your eyes, and clings to your tunic like an unwanted prophecy. Fun fact, ancient Phoenicians were some of the first to use bitumen natural tar, not just to seal ships, but even for mummification in foreign markets. They sold it to Egyptians. That means you, right now, are working with the same sticky goo that once ended up smeared across pharaohs. History is weird. Your fingers are black with it now. Try wiping them on your tunic. Congratulations! Now your tunic is black too. After maintenance comes inventory. Someone hands you a wax tablet and a stylus. Your job? Count sacks of grain. 2-3, you're dozing by sack 6. It's by sack 10. You're considering whether grain might be soft enough to sleep in, like a scratchy sand dune. Your crewmate shouts, "Don't lie down." There were weevils in the last shipment. You step away quickly. You don't trust weevils. Too many legs. Too much secrecy. As the sun arcs higher, your body starts to fade. You fantasize about finding shade and curling up under it like a sleepy dog. A dog. But nope. The ship needs loading for the next journey. It's always the next journey. The moment one ends, the other begins. Lunch arrives in the form of flatbread olives, and something the cook calls vine-wrapped surprise. You don't ask what's inside, you eat it quickly, then chew a fig as a treat. The fig fights back with tiny seeds stuck in your molars. After lunch, you're finally dismissed, sort of. 2 hours to rest? The quartermaster shouts. You could weep. 2 full hours. You might actually sleep. You stumble off the dock like a survivor of some strange slow-motion battle. The streets are noisy vendors shouting, children running, goats doing whatever goats do when unsupervised. You find a shady wall near a small temple and collapse against it. Your eyes close before your knees do. You sleep a real nap under real sky, not beneath rope or beside olive oil puddles. Just stone against your back, shade on your face, and the distant hum of city life as a lullaby. You wake up 30 minutes later because a lizard ran across your chest. You scream quietly. The lizard stops, blinks at you, and scurries off like it has better things to do. You sigh, nap, officially over. Still, it was worth it. You rise, stretch, and consider your options. You could wander the market. You could find a fountain and splash water on your face. But no, your body guides you back toward the ship, because your shift is coming. Always coming. Sleep is temporary. Rowing is eternal. You pass a group of merchants arguing over textiles. One swears his purple dye is real murex, made from actual sea snails. The other accuses him of faking it with beet juice and optimism. You chuckle. Phoenician purple, the real stuff, was outrageously expensive, extracted drop by drop from tiny snails. It took thousands for just one garment. Some say sailors used to stink of it during dye runs, the smell so strong that even seagulls avoided them. You think briefly of how lucky you are not to be on a dye boat right now? Back on deck, the crew is gathering. The captain squints at a scroll and makes dramatic gestures. Probably a speech. You hear about half of it, mostly the parts involving weather, tides, and why no one should mutiny this week. Then you're rowing again back at it. The sun begins to set, casting gold over the water. It's beautiful, annoyingly so. You wish beauty could make your arms hurt less. Alas. Row, rest, and still, somehow, you stay awake. Barely, you're not sure how. Some inner engine. Or maybe just the terror of being yelled at by a sailor with an eye twitch and strong opinions about rope knots. As night falls, you catch your reflection in the water. Sunburnt, sleep-deprived, smeared with tar and fig seeds. But still standing, still afloat, still you. Night settles over the sea like a woolen blanket, thick, itchy, and questionably damp. You're back on your bench, leaning against the side of the ship, trying to find a posture that doesn't make your spine cry for help. So far, no luck. Above you, stars blink through a thinning veil of clouds. The moon is out, just a sliver, like a fingernail someone forgot to trim. It casts a silvery sheen over the water, which would be romantic if not for the persistent smell of pickled fish and the sound of someone coughing up phlegm in the distance. Tonight, you're on third shift. The worst one. Too late to sleep properly, too early to wake refreshed. It's the zombie slot. You move like your soul's on back order. Rowing resumes. Slowly, the oars dip into the black water with steady rhythm, like the ship itself has a heartbeat. You follow the motion without thinking, the repetition lulling your senses into a sleepy stupor. No one talks much on third shift. It's mostly grunts, sniffles, and the occasional philosophical musing from that one guy who thinks he's a poet. Tonight, he whispers something about stars being the gods' freckles. You nod politely, even though you're 80% sure he just made that up to impress someone who ice and tea here. The ship rocks gently, helped by a mild current. The breeze is cool, almost kind. You breathe it in. It carries hints of pine resin and charred wood, evidence of coastal settlements nearby, hidden behind the dark horizon. This part of the journey is slower, more cautious. You're approaching unfamiliar territory. The captain hasn't traded here in years. Tensions may be higher. Alliances change like the tides. And just because a harbor welcomed Phoenician sails last summer doesn't mean they won to greet you with spears tonight. Historians still debate how much political awareness your average sailor carried. Some argue Phoenician crews were well informed, briefed on local customs and taboos. Others think sailors were just told, don't talk, don't steal, don't stare at priests, which sounds about right, honestly. After a couple hours, you rotate out again. You stumble below deck, but this time, there's no sleep waiting. Your bunk is occupied by someone snoring with heroic volume and absolutely no shame. You lie next to a pile of bundled cloth instead. Not ideal, but it beats the grain sacks. You drift off briefly, only to be jolted awake by the sound of hammering. Deck repairs. In the middle of the night, of course. You sigh, roll over, and stuff a tunic over your face. It smells like goat, mildew, and defeat. You drift again. This is how Phoenician sailors sleep piecemeal. A handful of minutes here, a half hour there. You learn to nap like a cat with trust issues. Eventually, the hammering stops. So does the motion of the ship. You blink in the darkness. No creaking, no splash, no wind, just stillness. You crawl up to investigate. The ship has docked quietly, stealth landing at a small outpost. No lights on shore, no music, just a wooden dock, barely more than planks and hope, jutting out into the water like it regrets its own existence. The crew works in silence. Boxes and jars passed from hand to hand. Eternal delivery, no shouting. Just the occasional hissed command. You help, because you're awake and therefore available. That's how it works. A bearded man waits at the dock with 2 guards, and an expression that suggests he'd rather be anywhere else. Takes the goods, gives a curt nod, and disappears into the dark. Transaction complete. The ship pushes off again, slowly. A silent departure. Quirky detail, in rare cases. Phoenician ships operated as clandestine smugglers, trading rare items in quiet ports outside imperial approval. Some say these after-dark exchanges were how early navigators learned about distant coasts by listening to the whispers of night traders. You feel slightly smug knowing you just lived one of those whispers. Back on the water, your shift is mercifully skipped. The captain decides you've earned a short break. You thank him with the enthusiasm of someone offered a golden crown, then crawl back into your corner and dissolve into sleep. When you wake again, the sun is clawing its way over the sea, all gold and fire and unnecessary brightness. You squint, stretch. Your back makes a sound like ancient papyrus. Morning chores. You're given net duty. Untangle the fishing nets. It sounds easy, it's not. Nets are the sea's version of puzzles, and these ones smell like fish, algae, and lost dreams. One has what might be a crab in it. You name him Gaius, and gently help him back to the sea. He gives you a look of mild betrayal as he disappears. The morning continues in a blur. Meals are handed out: dried fruit, some crusty bread, and a lump of cheese that may be older than you. You eat it all, then spend a full 5 minutes trying to remove a grape seed from between your teeth with a bit of splintered wood. Ship life is glamorous. You sit in the sun to dry your damp tunic. Around you, others are mending sails, oiling wood, writing reports in faded ink. You find a moment of peace. Just a quiet breath, a salty breeze, and the sense, however brief, that things are okay. Then someone yells, "Storm cloud!" Ah, So much for peace. The sails are lowered, the oars readied. You brace for rough water. Rain begins in slow, heavy drops, then faster. The sea churns. You're soaked in seconds. Thunder cracks across the sky like a ship splitting in two. Everyone's wide awake now. No one's thinking about sleep. But beneath the panic, beneath the wind and the shouted orders and the rising swell, a strange thing happens. You find rhythm. Row, pull, breathe. You don't panic. You just move. Because this is your life. You're a Phoenician sailor. You sleep in rope piles. You row in storms. You trade at midnight. And somehow, you keep going. The rain lashes sideways now, not down. It doesn't fall at attacks like the sky's angry and wants everyone to know it. You squint through the spray, blinking salt from your eyes. The oar in your hands feels heavier with each passing wave, like it's absorbing the sea's fury, storing it just for you. Lightning spider webs across the sky, briefly illuminating your crewmates wide. Soaked and bracing like barnacles in a storm, you wonder, as your arms burn with effort, what time it is. You laugh bitterly. Time means nothing now. Only the storm matters. Only the next pull, the next breath. The captain yells something unintelligible over the wind. Probably motivational, possibly profanity. Either way, it works. You grit your teeth and row. Historians still argue whether ancient Phoenician vessels were truly built for high-sea survival, or whether they just happened to float well and sailors were too stubborn to die. But here you are in the thick of it, proving some kind of point. The ship bucks hard as a wave smacks the prow, flinging seawater down your tunic. Shriek not from fear, but from sheer, soggy exasperation. This was supposed to be a trade run, simple port hop, Poseidonor. Whichever god is pulling the weather strings clearly didn't get the memo. You adjust your grip. The rope bindings on the oar chafe your hands, already raw from previous rows. Blisters burst and mix with salt. You wince. Welcome to the Phoenician exfoliation method. But through it all, beneath the storm's tantrum, your body finds the rhythm. Row, breathe, row, breathe. Each motion a tether to life. A small defiance in the face of chaos. Someone pukes overboard. Someone else starts singing a sea shanty in what sounds like 4 different keys. You don't join in, but the rhythm helps. It's either solidarity or shared madness. Possibly both. Then finally the clouds begin to unravel. It's not dramatic. No angels descend, and the rain just slows to a drizzle. The wind gives a final howl, and the sea softens like it's embarrassed for having overreacted. You slump, soaked to the bone, heart pounding, your hands shake, your teeth chatter, but you're alive, and the ship is still afloat. A few crew members cheer weakly, the rest just collapse onto benches, letting exhaustion pour out like wine from a cracked amphora. You lie back, face tilted skyward, and let the drizzle pat your cheeks like a half-hearted apology. It's over, now. Fun fact, Phoenician sailors developed surprisingly advanced waterproofing techniques for their time-coating ships with layers of resin and animal fat, sometimes even goat hair, to resist leaks. Not exactly glamorous, but effective. Right now, you're very grateful for every goat that ever donated its follicular assets to maritime safety. A few hours later, the sun returns. The world is washed clean. The sea glistens, impossibly calm, like it's pretending nothing ever happened. Classic sea, behavior gaslight, gatekeep, rainstorm. The captain announces a change en route. The storm has blown the ship slightly off course, and he's decided to stop at a smaller, less frequented island for fresh water and minor repairs. You've never been there before. You're not even sure it's on the official map. But it's land. It's rest. You're not going to argue. As the island approaches, it rises from the water like something ancient, craggy, forested, fringed with white sand and jagged rock. The harbor is barely more than a cove with a driftwood pier and a few stone buildings. Docking is smooth. You help secure the ropes, then stumble off the boat like a drunk crab. You stretch. You breathe. You exist on solid ground again. Your legs feel like stilts wrapped in jelly. Every step is suspicious. You walk like someone wearing someone else's body. Your job, forage. Specifically, fresh water, herbs, and, if possible, wild fruit. You head inland with a small group. The island is humid, dense with trees and buzzing things that seem far too interested in your ears. You find a stream, a small one, trickling lazily over mossy rocks. You crouch, fill a clay jug, and splash some on your face. Cold, sweet, and full of microscopic things you try not to think about. Nearby, someone yells, "Figs!" You rush over. Sure enough, a tree heavy with soft, swollen fruit. You pick 3 one-handed and devour them without ceremony. They taste like syrupy joy. You pocket a few more for later, while others gather herbs you explore. Just a little. A winding path leads up a hill. You follow it, slowly, cautiously. At the top is a clearing, and in the middle of the tan old shrine. Overgrown, cracked, but unmistakably sacred. A squat structure of stone, painted faintly in red and ochre. Sea offerings lie at its base shells, bones, bits of coral. You don't touch anything, you just sit near it, watching the trees sway and feeling the air hum. Historians aren't sure how many such island shrines were actively used by Phoenician sailors, or if some were just ancient relics reused over time. The records are murky, the archaeology patchy, but here it is. Real. Peaceful. For a moment, everything slows. No rowing, no yelling. It's just you, the rustle of trees, and the occasional goat bleat echoing like an off-key choir. Eventually you head back. The jugs are full, the fruit collected, your spirit, while still sores, mended slightly. Back on the ship, the repairs begin. Nothing serious, a cracked rudder beam, some ripped rope. You help patch it up, then settle against the side of the deck with a piece of fig and a moment of quiet. The sun sets slow and smooth, sky bleeding orange, then violet, then blue. The air turns cool. Someone hums a lullaby, barely louder than the creak of wood. Your eyes close. Then for once, just once, you fall asleep without anyone yelling. You wake up gently this time. No shouting, no cold water down your back, no storm trying to suck you into Poseidon's laundry chute. Just the slow return of morning light creeping across the deck like it's testing whether it's welcome. Your body protests as you sit up. Everything is sore shoulders back, even your eyebrows somehow. You stretch slowly, vertebrae crackling like old papyrus. Around you, the crew is already stirring. Quiet chatter. The soft thud of sandals on wood, the smell of smoke from the galley fire. You shuffle over and join the breakfast crowd. The meal, familiar. Dried olives, leftover figs, and a flatbread that tastes like it lost a battle with time. You eat it anyway. Hunger is the best seasoning, and you're starving. While you chew, the captain walks past, nods and mutters, "Favorable wind today." That's as close as you'll get to a pep talk. Everyone nods back solemnly, like monks agreeing on the weather. The sails are raised. The wind is light but steady, and the ship moves smoothly out of the cove. The island slowly recedes behind you, the shrine hill just a bump on the horizon now. You feel a twinge of something, gratitude, maybe, or relief. Today will be a sailing day. No rowing. Thank the gods. The canvas above you catches the wind like a lung filling with breath. May the creaking of ropes and the occasional flap of cloth become the dominant soundtrack. You lean against the railing, letting the sun warm your face. And for a while, the sea stretches around you, vast and blue, and dare you say friendly. A few dolphins leap in the distance, because of course they do. The ocean occasionally puts on a show to remind you it has a soft side. You're on lookout duty now. That means standing near the front of the ship, eyes squinting toward the horizon. It's trying to spot anything unusual: rocks, ships, floating barrels that might contain treasure or fermented disaster. To pass the time, you hum a tune your mother used to sing, something about honey and clay pots and a goat who learned to dance. You don't remember all the words, but your tone-deaf delivery would have drowned them anyway. A crewmate joins you, and you both play a game. Wave or whale? It's exactly what it sounds like. Every swell gets judged. Wave, whale. Nope, just 2 waves. Spooning, wave. You lose track after 20 guesses. Midday heat sets in, and the air grows thick. The sail is trimmed slightly to catch a change in direction. You sit in the shade, sipping watered wine from a goat bladder, and thinking about lunch, which of course arrives. Salted fish and lentils today, spiced with crushed coriander. It's actually decent. You eat too fast and get a bone stuck briefly in your throat, triggering a brief moment of existential panic. You live. Barely. Quirky detail. Some Phoenician sailors wore tiny pouches of crushed juniper tied to their necks, believed to ward off seasickness and bad fish spirits. You don't have one, but after that fishbone episode, you're considering it. In the afternoon, the ship passes close to another merchant vessel, not Phoenician. You know this by the hull rounded differently, painted with red stripes instead of indigo. The two ships eye each other like cats sharing a windowsill. You prepare for the worst. But instead of conflict, a brief shout of greetings is exchanged, followed by a small toss, a basket of dried dates. A peaceful interaction, despite the suspicion. Historians still debate how often Phoenician ships cooperated with foreign traders at sea. Some believe these Medocian exchanges were planned. Others think they were just spontaneous gestures of goodwill. Either way, the dates are delicious. The wind remains kind. By late afternoon, you spot the outline of a coastline up ahead, your next stop. A major port city, judging by the columns that rise even from this distance. This one trades in metals, iron, copper, maybe even silver. Big money, which means big effort. The captain barks orders. Everyone moves into position. You brace for docking. The city grows clearer as you approach rows of stone buildings stacked on hills. A wide harbor dotted with other ships and a market that practically shouts wealth from across the bay. There's a weird smell in the air, smoky, metallic, with a hint of spice. You breathe it in like a perfume. As the ship docks, ropes are thrown, moorings tied. You help unload jars, amphory bolts of linen wrapped tightly against moisture. Every item has a destination, a buyer, a scribbled symbol you mostly pretend to understand. The dock is loud, too loud. You miss the quiet of the sea already. Street sellers holler about sesame cakes and cheap jewelry. A man with gold-painted teeth tries to sell you a necklace made of bird bones. You decline politely. He curses politely. You're granted for hours of shore leave. Freedom. You and two others wander through the market, gawking like wide-eyed tourists with zero spending money. The smells here are a festival roasting lamb, crushed mint, burning resin. You grab a skewer of meat from a vendor, flip him a coin, and bite down. It's incredible. Probably mystery meat. You don't ask. Further in, you find a shrine to Melkart, the Phoenician god of kings, sailors, and getting dash through, dash life, dash with, dash some, dash degree, dash of dash dignity. You light a small oil lamp, whisper something like a prayer, and leave a pebble as offering. The god may not care, but you do. You make your way back to the ship as twilight paints the city in gold and purple. The market is slowing, the sea calming again. You feel the buzz of the city fade behind you like a dream.
Back on board.
You're told to rest. Tomorrow will be a long day of trade, loading metals, balancing ledgers, smoothing over merchant drama. But tonight, you curl into your corner of the deck, belly full, skin sun-warmed, and mind quieter than usual. The ship rocks gently, like a cradle. Above you, the stars begin to gather, and sleep comes fast, wrapped in the scent of spice and salt. You wake to the clatter of amphorae being shifted ceramic, bumping ceramic in that specific, nerve-prickling way that makes everyone collectively wince. In one crack, and someone's week just got a lot worse. Sit up, rubbing your eyes, blinking at the blur of activity on deck. It's trade day. It's not the fun, haggle over trinkets kind. This is the heavy lifting, careful counting, please don't drop that silver ingot kind of day. The port is already humming. From your spot on the deck, you see donkey carts clunking over flagstones, stevedores shouting over crates, and a couple of chickens trying very hard to avoid becoming lunch. This city's landing, they call it, is one of the bigger outposts, and you can feel it in your bones. There's an urgency in the air, like everyone's pretending they're late for something. You grab a quick breakfast of dried dates and half a barley cake, then join your assigned squad at the dock ramp. Today, you're part of the Silver Crew, which sounds glamorous, but mostly involves loading extremely heavy, non-glamorous ingots into equally heavy crates. The metal's roan refined and wrapped in rough cloth to prevent slippage. Your first lift almost knocks you over. You adjust your stance and mutter something deeply unflattering about gravity. Each trip from the dock to the merchant's storage tent takes 5 minutes there, 3 minutes back. And 1 minute of pretending you've pulled a muscle just to buy yourself a breather. You repeat this dance for what feels like hours, your arms slowly evolving into overcooked noodles. Some point you wonder how much silver you've personally hauled today. Enough to forge 100 swords, maybe? Or one giant statue of yourself in a triumphant pose, holding a fig. Historians still argue whether Phoenician sailors had formalized labor divisions. During trade, days some argue shifts rotated to prevent exhaustion. Others believe lower-ranking crew just suffered until they collapsed. Today, you suspect the second group might be right. You do spot the captain once, sipping from a bronze cup and supervising from the shade. He nods at you approvingly. You nod back with what you hope is respectful enthusiasm and not deeply internal screaming by midday. You're drenched in sweat and your tunic sticks to you like second skin. But the crates are empty. The trade is done. And the merchant has signed the final slate with a flourish that suggests he thinks ink is a performance art. The reward lunch, which you eat sitting on a barrel beneath a faded awning while a 3-string lyre player sings a tragic song about a sailor who fell in love with a sea cucumber. You don't ask, you just eat your spiced chickpeas and thank the gods for shade. After the meal, you're sent out with a partner to restock a few ship supplies before departure. Rope, lamp oil, dried herbs. You make your way through the city's side streets, following the scent of thyme and charred meat. The market here is less polished than the one at the docks, more real, in a way, more yelling. You stop at a rope vendor whose beard could probably tie knots on its own. He offers you 3 lengths, all different thicknesses, and dares you to break one. You try. You fail, he laughs, like thunder, and gives you a discount. You move on. At the herb stall, your partner gets distracted by a local trying to sell shark repellent incense. It smells like boiled socks and regret. You pass. Eventually, you return with everything on the list, plus a small bundle of dried lavender you bought for yourself with a spare coin. You don't tell anyone. You just tuck it into your bedding later for the scent. Because honestly, back at the ship, the final preparations are underway. You help load the new supplies, refill the water jars, and double knot a few suspiciously frayed ropes. Then it's one last glance at the shoreline just to say goodbye to the chaos. The harbor begins to shrink behind you. The ship eases into the deeper sea once again, carried by a breeze that smells faintly of fish and fresh coin. And just like that, you're a dot on the water once more. The mood on deck is light. People are tired, but not broken. You hear someone start humming a rowing tune. Even though no one's rowing, someone else flicks a fig pit at your ear. You retaliate with a piece of barley bread. And soon it's a full-blown snack skirmish. The captain shouts once, but you can hear the smile in it. As the afternoon wears on, you slip into your usual rhythm-checking knots, keeping an eye on the horizon, trying to remember which direction home lies in. And then something strange happens. You see a bird. It's not strange in itself. Birds are common out here. But this one isn't flying. It's walking. On water? No, wait, it's on something floating. You call it out, and soon half the crew is crowding the railing. A small raft drifts in your path, crudely lashed together from driftwood and bamboo. Atop it, a bright blue fabric flutters like a tiny sail, and tied to the mast is a message scrawled in dye. This way to adventure? That's it. No name, no direction, just a cryptic nautical meme. No one knows what to make of it. The captain decides not to investigate further. He mutters something about fishermen getting drunk and making art again, but the mystery lingers. Historians still debate how much non-trade seafaring the Phoenicians actually engaged in, were there explorers among them. Scouts for new colonies? Or was it just business? Always business. Some believe anonymous message rafts like this one did exist, pointing the way to settlements or warning of danger. You pass the raft in silence, everyone pretending it's not giving them mild existential dread. Later, as the sun starts to droop in the sky, you sit alone near the stern and let the salt wind tangle your hair. Your hands smell like rope. Your tunic is stiff with sweat and sea crust. But you feel strangely ... content. Not happy, exactly, just still, which is a kind of happiness, isn't it? You close your eyes, and somewhere between the whisper of waves and the creak of the mast, you feel the hum of something ancient, bigger than trade, bigger than this boat, something that maybe that raft was pointing toward. You don't need to understand it, you just float with it. And sleep comes like fog quiet, unannounced, soft around the edges. You wake 2 gulls, shrieking, dive-bombing gulls, who sound like they're re-auditioning for a play called We hate your peace and quiet. One of them perches boldly on the railing, stares you down, and deposits something unspeakable right next to your sleeping mat. A gift, perhaps. You brush yourself off and sit up, squinting at the shoreline approaching ahead. Another port. Smaller than the last, quieter, dustier. You can already tell it's going to smell like goats and old onions. The kind of place that thrives on routine and heavy trade, where every merchant seems mildly annoyed to be alive. You're not here for long, though. This is a pickup stop. Resins, mostly used for incense medicine and sometimes weird experiments involving waterproofing sandals. You're also collecting a small crate of lapis lazuli. It's destined for a far-off noble who probably wants to crush it into eyeshadow. You silently judge him, but only a little. The docking is smooth. The crew's getting better at this, or maybe the gods are feeling lazy. You and two others are sent out immediately to find the resin merchant. He's easy to spot, tall, wiry, wearing a tunic dyed the color of crushed mustard seeds. He greets you with the energy of a man who's spent his whole life waiting for someone to ask about tree sap, which, to be fair, you just did. While he packs up your order wrapped in palm fiber and sealed with wax, you glance around the marketplace. It's modest but interesting. You spot an old woman selling carved turtles with little secret compartments, a child trying to juggle 3 oranges and failing gloriously, and a man offering free spoonfuls of something he claims is sea lettuce jam. You don't try it? You're brave, not reckless? Back at the ship, the lapis crate arrives. 2 men deliver it with reverent care as if it's a sleeping baby. You help carry it below deck, noting the delicate shimmer of blue between the slats. It's mesmerizing like tiny bottled oceans. Quirky tidbit of the day. Some Phoenician sailors believed that lapis lazuli could ward off storms if you licked it 3 times and whispered your mother's name. You're not quite that desperate. Yet by noon, everything is loaded. The heat is oppressive. Today, thick and clingy like wool, soaked in soup. You take refuge beneath a tarp, sipping weak wine and trying not to move too much. Around you, the others are slumped in similar postures of resignation. One guy fans himself with a fish scale. You're not sure if it's working, but points for creativity. The captain announces you'll be sailing again by sunset. There's no need to rush. This is a rhythm you know well by now. Dock, trade, wait, float, repeat. Historians still argue whether the Phoenicians considered sailing a noble pursuit or just a necessary evil. Some scrolls suggest pride in their maritime dominance, while others hint at deep-seated sea weariness. Passed down like a family recipe for foot rot, you personally oscillate between both perspectives. By late afternoon, the air has cooled just enough to make movement possible again. You're assigned to help prepare the deck for departure, tighten the knots, prep the tiller, shoe the gulls. You also spend 10 minutes trying to convince a very determined cat to get off the ship. Yes, a cat. It must have snuck aboard during the market stop, now curled beneath a cargo net like it pays rent. When you finally manage to scoop it up, it hisses, then promptly licks your nose. You deliver it gently to shore. The cat will probably run this town within a week. Back on deck, sails go up, lines are pulled. Orders barked. You push off, just as the sun dips low enough to dye the whole harbor in gold. The ship glides out of the bay like it knows the way. Soon, the city is behind you again, shrinking into the haze. Dinner is simple tonight. Flatbread soaked in oil and crushed garlic, with a side of roasted lentils. Someone breaks out a story about a sailor who once traded an entire amphora of wine for a single magical chicken. The details get murky, but somehow the chicken winds up married to a fishmonger. The crew laughs genuinely. You laugh too, May. And for a moment, the sea feels like a friend again. Later. The wind shifts. The captain adjusts course, steering you closer to the coast. You're threading between rocky islands now, jagged outlines against the evening mist. The ship slows, moving cautiously through narrow passes. You're on lantern duty, lighting oil lamps along the railing to mark the hull's edges. A glow casts golden lines across the deck, softening the dark. As you finish the last one, you pause. Off to the starboard side, you spot something. A structure barely visible, half hidden by cliff and foliage. It looks like a watchtower, maybe, or a temple. It's built right into the stone, as if the mountain itself grew windows. No one else mentions it, but you keep staring. Historians still debate the full extent of Phoenician architecture beyond their main ports. There are records, some trustworthy, some less so. Secret coastal outposts, carved into cliffs, lit by flame and rumor. Some even say they were used as sea lighthouses, guiding friendly ships with coded torchlight. Eventually, it fades from view, swallowed by fog. You wonder what it was guarding. The night deepens. Stars blink overhead like they're slowly remembering how to shine. You lie back on the deck, arms behind your head, letting the motion of the sea do the work of a lullaby. The waves are gentle tonight. Not bored, not angry, just thoughtful. You hear the creak of rope, the rustle of sail, the steady sigh of water against wood. You feel the lavender you tucked into your bedroll earlier, the scent rising like a lull. You close your eyes, just for a second, and drift. No dreams, just dark. Just the sound of your own breath joining the rhythm of the sea. The morning greets you like a shy child, soft, hesitant, and absolutely smothered in fog. Sit up slowly, blinking into a world muted by silver mist. The sea is calm, almost suspiciously so. And the sails hang with a lazy slump that tells you not going anywhere fast today. There's a particular sound the ship makes when it's just floating, no wind. No tension, like a giant basket gently shifting on the surface of a pond. It's peaceful in a way that makes you yawn before you're even fully awake. You shuffle over to the water barrels, splash some on your face, and immediately regret it. Cold. Very cold. Breakfast is simple. A handful of soaked barley, flavored with dried fig. Not exciting, but it doesn't argue with your stomach. You eat perched on a crate, staring into the fog and wondering how far your voice would carry if you shouted. Probably just far enough to freak out a seagull. Eventually, the fog begins to lift, revealing a horizon made of jagged cliff lines and quiet coves. The captain consults the stars and the coastline and announces that today, his course will take you along an ancestral passage, a route once used by the earliest Phoenician sailors to connect sacred coastal sites. You're not entirely sure what that means, but it sounds dramatic enough to be mildly interesting. According to the ship's herbalist who once claimed to have seen a whale cry, this passage is said to be haunted by ancient sea spirits. Not malevolent, just ... curious. They apparently like to steal small objects and rearrange cargo when no one's looking. You quietly secure your sandals. The day unfolds slowly. No major tasks, just maintenance scraping barnacles off the hull with dull knives. Checking for wormholes in the lower deck timbers, resealing the amphory of oil. You hum to yourself as you work, slipping in and out of little memories like sea foam through your fingers. At midday, you catch sight of a structure on the cliffs, a stone circle. No walls, no roof, just wide, flat slabs arranged in a ring, like teeth half buried in grass. The crew murmurs. The captain slows the ship slightly, just to let everyone look. According to local lore, this place is called the Listening Stones. No one's quite sure what they listen to God's wind, each other, but they've stood for centuries, unmoved by war or weather. Historians still argue whether these cliffside sites were ceremonial, astronomical, or just very dramatic picnic spots. Some believe sailors used them for rituals before long voyages. Others claim they marked ley lines of maritime power. You just know they make your spine tingle a little. Later in the afternoon, you're given a break. You wander to the bow, sit with your feet dangling over the edge, and watch the rippling blue below. The sea is clearer. Here you can see strands of kelp swaying below like the hair of sunken mermaids. A dolphin surfaces nearby. It's just one. It swims parallel to the ship for a few minutes, occasionally glancing up at you with what can only be described as deep, fishy judgment. Then it flips its tail and disappears. You kind of miss it. By early evening, the fog is gone, and the sky opens wide like a scroll waiting to be written on. Dinner is shared quietly. Salted fish, olive paste, and roasted chickpeas passed from hand to hand. You eat slowly, savoring the calm. Then someone brings out the drum. Not a war drum, not a festival drum, just a little handheld one, made of leather and carved wood, its skin stretched tight with twine. The drummer starts slow, tapping a steady heartbeat that matches the roll of the ship. And just like that, story hour begins. These sessions happen only when the mood is right, when the sea is still, the food is warm, and no one's mad about anything. The first tale is about a sailor who fell in love with a goddess of rain and spent his life chasing storms just to catch glimpses of her. It's sad, oddly sweet, and probably stolen from a temple poem, but no one minds. The second tale is shorter. A crew who discovered an island made entirely of mirrors and slowly went mad seeing their true selves. That one hits a little too close to home, so they ended early. You offer a third-story one you half remember from a village elder back home. It's about a boy who traded his shadow to a fish in exchange for a magic flute. You forget the middle part, so you improvise. The flute plays smells, not sounds, and the fish becomes mayor of a coastal town. Surprisingly well received. There's laughter, there's yawning, and then there's just silence. Not empty silence, full silence. The kind that wraps around you like a woven blanket, holding all the words that don't need to be said. You lie back again, staring at the stars. They're impossibly bright tonight, glittering across the sky in tangled lines. The ship creaks beneath you, ever so gently, a wooden lullaby set to the rhythm of your pulse. One star shoots across the sky like it's late for a meeting. You make a wish. You won't tell anyone, but it involves a bath, a warm flatbread, and possibly never having to haul another amphora again. Historians still debate whether Phoenician sailors believed in celestial navigation or divine messaging from stars. Some sources suggest constellations were named after sea creatures and gods. Others argue most sailors just memorized the patterns and hoped for the best. You stare a little longer, wondering how many other sailors are looking up at the same sky right now. Maybe on other ships. Maybe in other centuries. Maybe it's always the same sea, just wearing a different face. Eventually, your eyes grow heavy. The stars blur. The deck tilts, just enough to cradle you. You tuck your hands behind your head, feel the warm bundle of lavender near your neck, and let your breath fall into sync with the hush of the waves. You don't dream of gods or storms or fish mayors tonight. It's just blue. Endless, gentle, forgiving blue. When you open your eyes, the sky is still the soft gray of pre-dawn, and everything is hushed like the world forgot to set an alarm. You stretch. Your back pops. A reminder that Phoenician mattresses were, in fact, wooden planks wearing a tunic of rough wool and good intentions. Someone is already stirring near the stern, probably the old cook. Judging by the clatter of bronze ladles and the faint scent of something being reheated that definitely involves lentils, you sit up and take stock. The sea is calm, the air is cool, your blanket is slightly damp because the night mist has no respect for personal boundaries. You rise, stretch again, and step carefully around the still sleeping crew. Someone is snoring so loudly it sounds like a goat being emotionally honest. You don't disturb them. You start your day with the most sacred ritual of all, staring into the sea while chewing on dry bread and pretending it's breakfast. The captain approaches shortly after sunrise. Today, he says, you re-heading toward an island known only to veteran traders and overly curious sea turtles. Its name roughly translates to Place of the Whispering Wind, which sounds beautiful until you realize the wind is mostly whispering threats about falling coconuts. According to the herbalist who's now convinced the ship itself might be sentient, this island is sacred, or cursed. It depends on the tide. You're redocking there to refill water stores from the natural spring, and to check in on a trade post that hasn't sent word in a few moons. Low priority, high curiosity. You spot the island by mid-morning. It rises like a shy creature from the Waterloo cliffs, dense foliage, and birds circling above like tiny, screaming omens. There's no formal port, just a natural cove where you can anchor and unload with relative ease. You go ashore with a few others, each of you armed with buckets, satchels, and a healthy distrust of anything that buzzes. The spring is real, bubbling gently from a stone basin carved long ago. Someone left offerings there: dried flowers, a tiny carved fish, and a small obsidian bead. You leave a pebble in return. It feels right. The trade post, however, is quiet, too quiet. You find the small hut tucked just beyond the tree line, overgrown with vines and moss. It's still intact, nodding, broken. No signs of struggle, but it's clear no one's lived here in weeks. Inside, there's a bowl of salt, a bone comb, and a half-written letter scratched onto palm bark. You can't read all of it, but it mentions strange dreams, a horn in the distance. And don't drink the water after midnight. Well, noted. You report back to the captain, who gives a slow nod and a tired shrug. Add it to the list, he mutters, which you assume means the ever-growing scroll of nautical mysteries that everyone pretends aren't real but definitely are. Historians still argue whether these island trade posts were independently run or part of a centralized network. Some evidence points to shared codes, while other findings suggest each outpost evolved with its own customs. It's like tiny floating fiefdoms, with shells for currency and way too many cats. You finish your water collection and prepare to head back. But not before one of your crewmates swears they saw a stone statue blink. You don't ask questions. The return to the ship is uneventful if you don't count the flying fish that nearly smacks you in the neck. Back on deck, everything is damp again. Salt clings to your skin, your clothes, your eyelashes. You haven't been fully dry in about 4 weeks, and frankly, you've stopped expecting to be. Lunch is a bit of an upgrade. Honeyed flatbread and something the cook swears is sea-pickled radish, which you eat with polite horror. You're back at sea before the sun is halfway down the sky. The ship moves gently now, gliding along calm waters that shimmer like melted coins. You sit near the bow again, staring ahead as the day begins its slow exhale into twilight. Somewhere in the distance, a whale breaches. Not close, but visible, a massive shadow rising from the deep, exhaling mist like a volcano with rhythm. The crew lets out a cheer. Even the captain smiles. Whales are good omens, or at least very large distractions from existential dread. You watch the whale disappear again, trailing ripples, and you wonder about what it's seen, about where it's going, about whether whales think ships are just very slow, very confused fish. Later, the wind shifts. It's not much, just enough to require repositioning the sail. You're called in to help, fingers raw from rope, muscles grumbling like a bored philosopher. Still, you fall into the rhythm easily now. Pull, brace, nod, pull again. The sun dips low, the sky bruises pink and gold. Dinner is shared on deck fig cakes tonight, a rare treat, sticky and sweet. Someone plays a reed flute with questionable talent, and someone else sings a song that may or may not be about a goat who falls in love with a sponge. The stars return, casual as ever, and with them, the quiet, the gentle lull of wind through rigging, the sigh of sea against hull. The steady breathing of the men around you, settling in for another night under the stars. You lie back once more, head cradled against a coil of rope, the scent of salt and sun-baked timber in your nose. Your limbs are sore but warm, heavy with the day's labor, the night's peace already wrapping around you. And for a while, you just listen. To the creak of the deck, to the flicker of canvas overhead, to the whisper of the sea, telling secrets only the moon understands. Sleep comes easily now. You've learned to trust the rocking, the rhythm, the safety of repetition. You close your eyes and drift not into dreams of home, or of treasure, or of freedom, just into blue. Again and again, the gentle, endless blue. You wake to rain. It's not the dramatic kind that hammers sails and makes you question your life choices, just a fine, whispery drizzle that dusts your skin and beads on every wooden surface like the ship sweeping quietly in its sleep. You sit up, slick and blinking, brushing droplets from your face. Around you, the crew is slowly stirring some, shielding their heads with tunics, others just sighing and letting the rain do what it wants. By now, it's practically a member of the crew itself. Today's a maintenance day. No sailing, no docking, no desperate rowing competitions with oncoming storms. Ouch. Time. You help lower the anchor near a quiet inlet, the water glassy beneath you and shaded by cliffs on both sides. It's peaceful in that eerie, something is probably watching us from the trees kind of way. The cook makes warm porridge, thick and lumpy, sweetened with a spoon of honey that someone smuggled from the last inland trade stop. You eat it standing up, because the benches are soaked, and you're pretty sure the deck has developed a small ecosystem of mushrooms where your bedroll usually goes. Tasks come slow and steady. You clean the deck with bristle brushes made from woven palm stalks. You oil the rudder hinges. You take inventory of amphorae, sacks, cords, and mysterious unlabeled bundles that you don't touch too long, just in case. There's talk of organizing the hold by logic instead of panic, which no one takes seriously. You're given the job of cataloging dried goods, a task which involves sniffing a lot of sealed jars and hoping your nose can tell lentils from crushed dates. You make a list anyway and draw tiny icons next to each entry, your own contribution to ancient maritime documentation. You pause near midday to stretch and look around. The cliffs above are dotted with nests, and the air is full of chirping from some kind of sea swallow. Their wings slice the mist like daggers. You feel small beneath the stone and sky. One of the younger crewmates tells you this cove is rumored to be the final resting place of a sunken ship filled with gold ingots the size of your forearm. He swears his uncle once dove for one. You ask what happened? He shrugs. Uncle came back with 2 barnacles and a sense of perspective. Historians still argue whether Phoenician sailors frequently buried or lost treasure at sea, or whether this is mostly romantic nonsense popularized by storytellers and overly enthusiastic divers. Some recovered wrecks have yielded stunning artifacts, but most reveal the truth. Lots of amphorae and 0 cursed rubies. The afternoon drags in a slow, humid way. You play a game with a few other seashell dice and flat stones, trying to guess patterns or predict tosses. It's simple and involves just enough luck to keep everyone arguing. You win a dried fig and lose a sandal. Later, someone finds the sandal stuck between the grain sacks. You pretend it was an intentional offering to the grain spirits. It's not funny, but it is a little. Before dinner, a trader boat passes close by. Just a small one, crewed by 3 sunburned men and 1 parrot who shouts words you don't repeat. The boats exchange nods, a few shouts, and some dried lemons tied to a rope and swung across the water. Gifts or bribes for good wind, hard to say. You share a smile with one of the traders. For a moment, it's like seeing yourself in an alternate version of a shorter boat. A different crew, a parrot instead of a flute. You wonder if they're going home or just further away from it. Evening rolls in under a curtain of peach-colored clouds. You sit beside the captain, polishing bronze tools. He's quieter than usual today, tracing the edge of a blade with his thumb like it's a map he can quite read, he tells you softly. So the others can't hear that tomorrow you sail home. You blink. Not because you're surprised, because you forgot home was a direction that still existed. Says the winds are right, and the cargo's full enough. The markets will be waiting. The harbor taverns, the families, and the debts. You nod, trying to feel something specific. But instead, your thoughts swim in every direction. You help with the final chores. You share one last bowl of salted beans. And you curl up in your usual spot between the rope coils and the crate marked "definitely not full of bees." Tonight. You don't sleep right away. Instead, you lie awake listening to the sounds you know you won't hear again soon. The creak of the mast, the lapping of waves, the low hum of sailors breathing in sync. Even the rain has stopped, leaving behind a world slick with silence. You think about the nights to come and land in a dry bed, with a roof above you and bread that doesn't smell faintly of seaweed. It sounds amazing. It's still. You'll miss this. The rhythm, the closeness, the way everything you owned fit in a satchel and nothing else really mattered. You close your eyes slowly, knowing the next sunrise will be different, and that's okay. But for now, you're still a sailor, still at sea, still held by the old wood and the endless knowing blue. Wind down and now. Let the gentle breath of the sea fade softly from your ears. Let the creak of timber and the whisper of sailcloth become distant, like dreams carried away on morning mist. You're no longer pulling ropes or watching stars. You're simply floating. Let your body grow heavier with stillness, the way it does when you're wrapped in warm cloth and silence. Let your limbs forget effort. Let your thoughts drift like those seabirds gliding on coastal windlays, meandering with nowhere to be. Remember the feel of salted wood beneath your hands, the sting of wind that meant you were alive, and the hush of ocean that meant you were not alone. Let it go now. The ship is far behind. The harbor is ahead, quiet and waiting. But you are in the space between. It's the peaceful pause before return, the softest part of the journey. So sink deeper into your pillow. Feel your breath slow, long, and even. No sails to raise, no stars to count, just sleep. Deep, quiet, sea blue sleep.